The golden decay. Time means nothing when you are death. I learned that in my first hours of service, though hours is a word that no longer fit me. I existed in moments instead, this death, that death, the next. A banker clutching his chest in Frankfurt, a fisherman slipping under the cold water off the coast of Maine, an old woman in Kyoto letting go of a breath she'd held for 90 years, all at once, all of them mine. I was stretched across the surface of the world like oil on water, everywhere and nowhere, present at every ending and absent from every life. The Father had promised me an eternity of this. What he hadn't told me, what he left me to discover on my own, because that was his idea of justice, was the precise shape the punishment would take. It took the shape of gold. You'd be surprised what people hold on to at the end. Not their fortunes, usually. The truly rich die the same as everyone else, alone inside their own failing bodies. No, they hold the small things, a wedding ring worn thin, a locket with a photograph gone soft at the edges, a pocket watch, a coin from a country that no longer exists. Cheap things, most of them. Priceless things, all of them. The exact kind of thing I had once filled a drawer with. And here was the joke the Father had built into the architecture of my sentence. I could see every one of them. I just couldn't keep a single one. The first time it happened, I didn't understand. A man was dying in a hospice in some gray northern city. Heart failure, slow and gentle, his family long since gone home for the night. In his hand, he held a brass compass, the kind you'd give a boy who dreamed of ships. As his soul came loose, the compass slipped from his fingers, and out of an instinct older than my punishment, I reached for it. My hand passed through it like it was made of fog, or like I was. I couldn't tell which of us was the ghost. I tried again, and again. The compass lay there on the white sheet, solid and real and gleaming faintly, and my fingers closed on nothing every time. I could open a door between worlds with a key made of twilight, but I could not pick up a child's compass. That was the rule now. That was forever. I started to see the pattern after that, the way you start to see a word everywhere once you've learned it. Gold. It was everywhere. Rings and chains and the gold leaf on a dying priest's Bible. The gold of wedding bands being eased off swollen fingers by weeping relatives. The gold of late afternoon light through a hospital window at the exact moment a monitor went flat. Even the doors I opened were gold, for the ones who'd earned the climb. That same impossible gold I'd watched swallow Mrs. Henderson a lifetime ago, when I still had a desk and a chair and a name. All of it within reach, none of it mine. I had wanted the material world so badly that I'd sold justice itself to hold a piece of it. Now I lived inside it, drowned in it, surrounded on every side by exactly what I'd craved, and it ran through me like water through a sieve. The Father is not a subtle craftsman, but he is a thorough one. There was a man, I won't give you his name because names had started to lose their hold on me by then, and his least of all, who died in a house the size of a church. Marble floors. A staircase that curved like a question nobody had answered. He'd made his money in something that ruined other people slowly, the way the largest fortunes usually are made, and he was dying alone in a bed that had cost more than most of his victims earned in a year. He saw me the moment his soul came free. They always do. "Ah," he said, and he actually smiled. "So, there is something after." "There's a door," I said. "I open it, that's all." He looked at me the way men like him look at everyone, as a thing to be negotiated with. And the direction of the door. That's the part we discuss, I assume. Everything is. And here is where the joke folded back on itself, where the design showed its real teeth. Because once, not so long ago, by the only clock that still mattered to me, a man had stood in front of my desk with a silver stapler and offered me exactly this trade. And I had taken it. I had opened the golden door for a soul who had earned the dark, because I could not say no to a piece of chrome. I made inquiries, the rich man went on, conversational, certain. Even about this, about the end. They say the one who keeps the gate can be reached, if a man brings the right thing, that the right gift opens the right door. He spread his hands at the room, at all of it. And I have brought everything. I almost laughed. I might have if I still remembered how. The one who kept the gate, I said, is gone. He did exactly what you're asking. He took the gift and opened the wrong door more than once because he could not stop himself. And this is what they did to him for it. I let the man look at me, at the cold of me, the gray, whatever I had become. I am what's left. There's no gate to reach any more. Only me and a door that was decided the day you decided who to be. He didn't believe me. They never did, the certain ones. He gestured at the nightstand where a watch lay heavy and golden and ticking, the only honest sound in that enormous room. Name a number. A thing. That watch is worth more than your... He stopped, looking at me again, recalculating. I have everything. I know, I said. I can see all of it. And I could. The watch, the rings, the cufflinks, the cold gleam of the safe behind the painting. Every bright, real, beautiful thing in that vast cold house. But there's nothing you can give me. There's nothing I can take. Not any more. It was the truest thing I had said in a very long time, and the strangest part was this. Even if he could have bribed me, even if I'd had a door to sell, I still could not have kept the watch. It would have passed through my hand like the compass, like all the rest. The one being in all of creation who had fallen for the love of gold was now the one being who could never hold it. He had tried to buy the corruption that had already destroyed me, and he had brought his gift to the very thing that corruption had made. His door, when it opened, was not gold. I won't tell you what color it was. He did not go quietly, and I did not blame him. You might think the empty-handed deaths would be easier, the ones with nothing to clutch, nothing for me to fail to hold. And at first they were. A man dying under a bridge with his hands open and empty, asking me for nothing because he'd learned a long time ago that asking got you nothing. His door was a warm one, a good one, better than the rich man's by a wide margin. I felt something almost like peace standing there. Nothing to reach for, nothing to lose, but the empty hands turned out to be their own cruelty. Because watching a man die with nothing at all only reminded me that I, too, now owned nothing, would own nothing, ever. We were the same, the beggar and I, except he got a door that opened onto something, and I got to keep holding the key. And there was a worse thing than the gold I couldn't hold. There were the promises. I had made them in my last days at the desk, when I still thought I was being merciful. A widow had given me her grandfather's watch so that her husband, when his time came, might walk into the light he had not earned. A child had handed me a stuffed rabbit so that her grieving mother might be spared the dark. I had taken their treasures and promised them doors. And then I had been thrown down from the gate, and now there were no doors that were mine to give. Somewhere out there those people were still living. The husband, the mother. When their time came, another would judge them fairly by what they had done. And the gifts had bought nothing, exactly as the father had said. They had paid everything for smoke. I carried that. I still do. Of all the things I cannot put down, that is the heaviest, and it weighs nothing at all, and that is precisely the problem. Somewhere in those first weeks, or months, or however you measure a thing with no clock, I began to feel myself going cold. Not my hands. My hands had been cold since the moment frost first bloomed on my old desk. I mean something further in. When I had started, I felt each sole as it came loose. A small warmth, like cupping your hands around a candle. The last heat of a life still glowing as it left the body. The leukemia girl, my very first, had warmed me when she took my hand, even through whatever my skin had become. I had held on to that. It was the last warm thing I could remember. But warmth, it turns out, is a thing you can wear out. Feel enough endings and they stop being endings. They become a temperature, then a number, then nothing at all. By my 100th death, I still felt them. By my 1000th, I had to remind myself to. By the time I had lost count, I had stopped reminding myself. The warmth of being near a life was decaying out of me, one death at a time, and I let it because feeling all of it would have torn me into pieces. That was the real decay. Not the gold I couldn't hold, the gold I was losing on the inside. Then came the day. The Father had promised it. One day a year, 24 hours, to walk among the living as one of them. I had laughed when he said it. I had asked who would ever want such a thing. I understood when it finally came that he had not offered it as mercy. He had offered it as a lesson, and the lesson was cruel, and it was this. You cannot give a starving man 1 meal a year and call it kindness. You only teach him very precisely the shape of his hunger. I woke, an act I had not performed in what felt like forever, in a body that was warm. Mine, more or less. The one I had worn when I was a man with a name, before the desk, before the gold. I was sitting on a bench in a city I won't name, on an ordinary afternoon, and the sun was on my face. I want to tell you it was wonderful. For about an hour it was. I bought a cup of coffee and it was bitter and too hot, and it was the finest thing I had ever tasted, because I could taste it, because the cup was solid in my 2 hands and stayed there. I ate. I felt the wind. A dog let me scratch behind its ears and I felt the fur, warm and real and alive, and I came closer to weeping into it than I would like to admit. And then I did the thing I knew I would do. The thing the Father knew I would do, which is the whole reason he gave me the day at all. I went looking for something to keep. There is always a little shop. This one was full of exactly the kind of bright, worn, second-hand things I used to fill my drawer with, and on a shelf near the back I found a small brass bird, no larger than my thumb, its wings rubbed smooth by some other hand in some other life. It cost almost nothing. I bought it. I held it the entire rest of the day, in my warm and living fist, and for those few hours it was mine. Really mine. Solid and real and kept. I should have known better. I had, after all, watched my whole collection turn to dust once already. At midnight the warmth began to leave my hands. I felt the cold climb back in, the old familiar frost, and I held the little brass bird as tight as I could, as if grip had ever been the thing that mattered. It went to powder between my fingers exactly as the watch had, and the rabbit, and Mrs. Price's cheap and priceless jewels, a little drift of dust on a midnight street. And then I was death again, and there was a man freezing to death 300 miles north of me, who needed his door opened. 1 day a year. A single meal for a starving man. I have never hated anything the way I hated the Father's mercy. That was the first year. I know now that it was the easy one, though I could not have believed it then. The schedules, the fractures, the ghosts, the long centuries of watching everyone I might have loved grow old and reach at last for my key. None of that had landed yet. In that first year I still thought of myself as a man being punished. I had not yet become the punishment. but I was learning the shape of forever, and forever, I was discovering, is not a length of time. It is a kind of weather. It is the knowledge that the gold will always be there and always out of reach, that the warmth will always end at midnight, that there is no number of doors you can open that will ever add up to a way out. There was one. The Father had left me that, the single thread, the provision I had laughed at. Find a soul willing to take your place, knowingly, freely. 5 years of mortal life, and then this. I had asked who would ever agree to such a thing. I was beginning in that first golden, decaying year to understand that the answer would take me a very long time to find, and that finding it would cost me the last warm thing I had left. But that, as I think I've said before, is a story for another time. The brass bird is gone. The compass, the rich man's watch, every bright thing I have reached for across every year since, gone, or never mine to begin with. I stand in a world made of gold, and I hold a key made of dusk, and the one will never become the other. That is the golden decay. Everything precious, everywhere, forever. And not one grain of it for me. End of episode 2.